Today we're working on drilling out broken Phantom 3 cylinder head studs. We got quite a few in this engine block that are broken off and need to come out for the rebuilding process. So I think on this side alone there's about 16 of them. This is an unfortunate thing. The customer, or actually the owner of the engine, broke them out. He didn't understand how difficult they are to get them out and how easily they can break when you're trying to get the cylinder head off and get those out. So normally I have a better success rate with getting them out manually with a lot of heat and welding nuts on and all sorts of other things, but sometimes you get to a point where you get a few of them that just won't come out, and a lot of times drilling is your only option. So I have on here a steel plate that's bolted down to the block. I made up some countersunk screws to hold it on. What I did was I took some very long 5/16 American ones and then cut off the thread and then rethreaded them 5/16 BSF. So this is a drill bushing that I made. It's hardened so that the drill bit won't wear into it. This diameter here is 3/8, and that locates in that part of the hole. This diameter is 265, and that locates onto the stud. So that centers up your broken off portion of the stud. I see some filings in this I'm going to blow out. So that's helps to get you started on the center. So now what I'm going to do is I have a magnetic drill press. I'm going to stick it on there and work on getting that centered up on there, and then I'll start the drilling process. I'm going to start with a 3/16 carbide uncoated drill. The red mark is the depth, so I know how far in I'm going when the bushing is removed. And then I'm going to move up to I think it's let me read it, 17/64 carbide drill, uncoated. And that has a blue mark in there for my depth on it. Once I get the drill in position, I use this block. And the idea of it is to keep this bushing perpendicular. But because of the thickness of the block, I don't have quite enough room for the bushing to center up on this. So, and I'll show you that. So I made up this bushing. The hole in it is 1/2 inch, and that's a 1/2 inch bushing. So I put that right over on top of that. Get it so everything kind of feels good. Turn on the magnet and it sticks down. So yes, that feels nice. So now I take that out, get it out of the way. So then I can put my drill bushing back in. I've also filed the top of the broken stud so that the drill bit won't want to wander around into a divot or something that could be there. I'm going to put this on. I'm just making sure everything's centering up nicely. I'm probably going to put a little clamp on here just to keep that in place. Yeah, seems promising. Okay, so everything seems to be down nice and tight. So I'm using a fresh drill bit. You almost need to change your drill bits quite regularly, especially if they get a chipped point. I picked up the marked one. So yeah, if they get a chipped point, then you know, they don't tend to dull down, they tend to chip. And when that happens, then it's the possibility of it wandering is much greater. So we have everything nicely centered up still. Travels in and out. So that's a 3/16 hole. This is a 3/16 bit. So now we're going to get some cutting oil. That will help chips to exit up through the flutes and not jam things up. It'll also help to keep things cool and eliminate some of the friction, which can be a problem. So now we're going to turn it on. It's going to be a bit loud. And I'm going to drill through. You want to take it slow and easy. Keep a close eye on things. If anything funny happens or you feel like you got to work the drill in harder, then you got to pull out and see what's going on. You also want to pull up and clean out the tips. You want to do that frequently. So I'm in far enough that I can take the bushing out. There's some filings in there to blow out. You'll notice I don't use as much oil as I'm approaching the breakthrough point, and the reason for that is because when you oil it, initially it slips and it's not cutting, and then it starts to grab and then starts to dig and cut. And if you're right at the close point of breaking through, and you know, and the oil is slipping there, and then you break through, you know, it decides to grab and break through at the same time, that's going to lead to either a broken or a chipped drill bit. Breaking a drill bit off in these situations is terribly dreadful to deal with. and is highly avoided. It's bad enough you have a broken stud. You don't want a broken drill bit. Since drill bits are hard and nothing can really get through them except EDM or grinding. Sometimes I just kind of gotta poke and pick in there and bring out bits and pieces of the broken drill bit out. So now the next thing to do is I like to run an end mill in and get rid of that upper portion, or the bottom portion I should say, or the base of the stud. So yeah, so we have this flange on the stud, and what you're seeing there is this part of it, but then inside of the block is this flange, and we need to get rid of that. So I like to mill that out before I go to the extra, or to the larger diameter, to the tapping size. And I like to do it that way because the 17/64 drill can catch on to this thin piece of steel there and break or chip or do something like that. So it's a lot easier to get rid of that portion with the end mill. So it's probably very hard to see, but the drill bit is still in really, really good condition. So it looks like I'll be able to get more use out of this one. Those drill bits are about $25 or so a piece. And if you're going to have, you know, if you're lucky, you might get 2 or 3 stud drillings per drill bit, per size, I should say. So it does add up. So I have enough milled away that I'm down to the thicker portion of that collar. So I feel better about leaving it where it is now so that I can drill to the next size up, the 17/64. So now we'll start using a fair amount of oil again. About at the breakthrough point, so I'm cutting back on oil and I'm making sure I'm being diligent about cleaning out the chips. So it broke through, and that's why I grabbed like that. Unfortunately, this drill is not reversible, so you got to do it the old-fashioned way. And that's the point where you got to be very, very careful, because that can lead to the broken drill bit issue. So at this point, I want to add in some oil to help it slip out of here. And that's a thinner oil. In the past, somehow I've managed to do this in my milling machine, but it is really tight quarters. I don't even know how I did it. I have pictures of doing it, and I remember doing it. I also had help then, which could help me position it in the milling machine. But once it was in there, I had very little room between the chuck and the cylinder block to work with. But if I had a slightly larger milling machine, it would have been ideal. And I think I still would have had issues with positioning and all that, so I don't think this method is the end of the world. So I just want to ease out this drill bit, since I don't want a broken drill bit off in there, or even any part of a broken drill bit in there. And here it comes. All right. So it looks like what happened is perhaps that collar of this, the remaining portion of the stud has moved. to show how nice and centered up we are in there. So now we can run a tap through there and clean out the fragments of stud that are in the hole still. So I use a drill bushing in the chuck. This ensures that I'm centered. So we get that started in and work it on down. Oops. Since we're into aluminum, I'm going to use a slightly thinner oil. Once we have it down a good bit, we can get the drill out of the way. And this can be a heavy thing. Feels very nice, so I think we have a good thread still. So let's find out. Since we have to relocate our plate, I'm going to go ahead and take it off. So on this side, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to do. Okay. So use a little of this to cut out that oil. You may see thread coils actually blowing out. In fact, there's thread coils that are on the blowgun. So that's when you know you're on the center. Get a little more of this. So now you look down in there and you see a nice, clean, ready to go aluminum thread. Get a Still pulling stuff out. I like to look down in as far as I can. Oh, and if I do, I see some thread coils still in there. Oop. Put them down here. I don't have them all out, but I'll work on those. But in looking there, I can see that the thread is in really good shape still. Doesn't look like the drill bit got to it at all. So here's an old stud. The thread looks okay on it. Just to give an example of So that'll tighten up very well.